Thanks a lot for joining us today for the performance of the longitudinal installation. Today marks 100 years since a human first touched the South Pole. To me, it's an important date to mark for two reasons. One, so much about global climate change is studied and happens on that continent. A lot of what science is exploring today is happening through a series of 14 nations in their laboratories in Antarctica. And the first person to take us to the South Pole did so 100 years ago. And so much has changed in this world in these just short 100 years. And if you can just imagine that, the big problem to solve was somehow finding your way to the South Pole at a time that was completely different from where we are today as a planet. And the second reason it's important, it's a longer human history, more than 100 years. 60,000 years ago, our ancestors began migrating out of Africa after spending a lot of time in Africa. Some stayed and others continued going, populating every continent but for Antarctica. They did so responding to climate change. If there was a drought, they wouldn't go in that direction. If the rains happened, then they would hunt and gather towards those directions. And little by little, the slow motion journey populated our planet in response to nature. Antarctica was that last continent, one that we weren't at, but one that in many ways is the proverbial canary in the coal mine that's going to tell us how we are going to respond to nature based on how the very sea levels on the shores right here on Miami Beach are going to rise in response to what we are doing across the globe on that continent. And for that reason, I want us to repeat this installation I created at the South Pole as part of a National Science Foundation fellowship back in 2007, and then again at the North Pole in 2008, because it's a beautiful way of connecting us to one another. These longitudes all converge at the pole, and what I did is I spoke the words that you're going to speak today of 24 people whose lives have been impacted by global climate change. I try to make the point that all of us are interconnected, and what we do here in Miami Beach affects you in Zimbabwe and in Tibet. And if we do bad things, they're going to have bad impacts. There's going to be repercussions. If we do good things, then we can help heal this planet. It's about thinking globally and acting locally. So today, to commemorate this great feat, the first human to get to any pole, actually. So it's the first human that literally stood at the point where every other longitude stood. So in a sense, Amundsen, his dogs and men all connected with every human being conceptually at the pole 100 years ago today. And to honor that, I want to now speak the words across 24 time zones of people 100 years later. 0 degrees, Spain. There may be a move of the wineries into the Pyrenees in the future. Xavier Sort, Technical Director of the Miguel Torres Wineries.
15 degrees east, Switzerland. Losses to insurers from environmental events have risen exponentially over the past 30 years, and we are expected to rise even more rapidly still. Pamela Heck, insurance industry expert.
30 degrees east, Zimbabwe. We used to be able to grow everything we want, but that all has changed. Matsapi Nayathi, grandmother.
45 degrees east, Turkey. We are helpless. We're trying to rescue trapped people while also trying to evacuate floodwaters that have inundated hundreds of houses. Muharrem Ergul, Mayor, Beykoz district of Istanbul.
60 degrees east, Iran. More than 90% of our wetlands have completely dried up. Amladari, environmental researcher, Forest Province.
75 degrees east, Maldives. In the worst case scenario, we'll have to move. Foreign Ministry spokesman Ahmed Saeed.
90 degrees east, Tibet, China. The Sherpas of Khumbu may not know everything, but they are suffering the consequences of the people's greed. We mountain people should be careful and take precautions. If we don't save Khumbu today, our fresh water will dry up, and the problem will be impossible to solve in the future. Luang Tenzing Wampo, the abbot of Tenbochi Monastery.
105 degrees east, Borneo, Indonesia. There's been no rain. It's horrible. The governor's office has instructed schools and offices to close until further notice. Hidayat, government official.
120 degrees east, the Philippines. The disaster covered almost every corner of this province. Rampaging floods, falling trees, damaged houses. It happened very rapidly, and many people did not expect this because they haven't experienced mud flows in those areas before. Fernando Gonzalez, Governor of the Albay Province.
135 degrees east, Japan. It's no exaggeration to say that Japan faces a critical situation when describing the rapid decline of marine supply in its domestic waters that is linked to seaweed loss. Tengusa, seaweed, provides food for marine species. Tomohiro Takase, head of the Fisheries Department at the Hachijojima Municipality.
150 degrees east, Great Barrier Reef, Australia. In 20 years' time, bleaching is highly unlikely to be annual, and that will cause shallow water corals to be in decline. We need to start working out how we can help people who rely on it for their income. It's really quite a stunning fact. Ove Hoag Goldberg, Director of the Center for Marine Studies at the University of Queensland.
165 degrees east, Micronesia. We have nowhere to go. Ben Namakin, environmental educator.
180 degrees, Tuvalu. Tuvalu is the first victim of global warming. Kuala Talake, former Prime Minister.
165 degrees west, Niue. Yesterday morning we woke up to a scene of so much devastation. It was just unbelievable. Cyclone Heta was just so fast, furious, and ruthless. Cecilia Talaji, Government Secretary.
150 degrees west, Alaska, USA. We are at a crossroads. It is practical to stand and fight our Mother Ocean, or do we surrender and move? Shishmaref Mayor Edith van der Strasse.
135 degree west, Yukon, Canada. The weather is really unpredictable and the ice freezes much later and breaks up earlier. There are more incidences of hunters falling through the ice. Kishaba Hunter, Grease Ford, Canada.
120 degrees west, Nunavut, Canada. Our cultural heritage is at stake here. We are an adaptable people. We have, over the millennium, been able to adapt to incredible circumstances. But I think adaptability has its limits. If the ice is not forming, how else does one adapt to seasons that are not as they used to be when the whole environment is changing under our feet, literally? Sheila Watt-Cloutier, President of the Circumpolar Conference.
105 degrees west, Colorado, USA. In Colorado, climate change means less snow, less water, more wildfires, less biodiversity, and less economic opportunity, as there is less water available for development. Stephen Saunders, President, Rocky Mountain Climate Organization.
90 degrees west, Nicaragua. I close my eyes and pray to God. Mariana Gonzalez, Hurricane Mitch survivor.
75 degrees west, Peru. I tell my wife the day that mountain loses its snow, we will have to move out of the valley. Jose Ignacio Lambarri, farmer, Urubamba Valley.
60 degrees west, Argentina. The flooding has forced us to redesign routes. We thought it would be for a short period of time, but it has been almost 6 years. Carlos Avellaneda, manager of a trucking company.
45 degrees west, Brazil. I am very frightened. One thing goes wrong and the entire system follows. Jair Soto, Mayor of Manaquiri.
30 degrees west, Greenland. They tell us that we must not eat matak, whale blubber, but this is all we know. Eating the Inuit food makes us who we are, and anyway, we have nothing else to eat. Tasmek, town of Quanaq.
15 degrees west, Miranata. We are only eating one meal a day. When there is not enough food, it is the young and the old that get fed first. Fatuma Mint Iluta Manchuma.
Thank you for participating in the longitudinal installation. As we read these words, we could not help but connect with these people. This is what they were speaking 5 years ago. How much has their world changed? Is that farmer moved out of the valley? You know, is that grandmother still alive? And how many others like them are there? Let's commit today on this anniversary to do whatever we can through our efforts, through the work Cleo is doing, through the work we're doing through our respective practices, to the way you study and the way you teach your students to try to make sure that the next 100 years leave this planet in a whole lot better place than it is today, because we are doing nothing but borrowing them from future generations. Thanks a lot for participating. This project is all about when we act here, and that is for us to come up with a 25th goal. How is global climate change affecting you?